Today we cover the Mortuary Assistant. This feels like the perfect game to begin with, as we just start to round that corner into the season where most people are starting to get in the mood for some horror games, some horror movies, and all things Halloween. Truthfully, this is a game that's been on my radar for quite a while. The developer of this game goes by Darkstone Digital. And one day while flipping through Twitch, I discovered his channel. As someone who loves horror games and one day would like to create one of his own, I found this channel to be the perfect place to spend a couple evenings. Some nights we would get the chance to see him work on the game a little bit. It was extremely cool to see a game developer go through his thought processes and the ability of his to problem solve in real time. Other nights, he would either be under a time crunch or simply didn't want to give away too many spoilers, so we would get to hang out and watch short YouTube horror movies and chat while he codes or works on the game art. Admittedly, it was a very cozy stream vibe as far as the horror genre goes. The real reason I want to cover this game is because it has received a strange mix of reviews. As of right now on Steam, it's currently just under 2,000 reviews, with the vast majority of them being very positive. If I'm the average gamer who's already sold on the price point and the gameplay in the trailer, after seeing very positive reviews, that would be enough for me to consider buying this game. Unfortunately, those reviews aren't quite as consistent once we expand outside of Steam. For example, Metacritic currently has it sitting at a 2.6 out of 10 from user reviews. Now please take this score with a grain of salt, as this score has only been generated from about a pool of 25 responses. That is not a huge sample size. Additionally, many of the negative comments and reviews are from the first couple of days of the release and cite a lot of bugs being the main issue, which in my opinion is to be expected when you're working with a smaller team. It's impossible for you to account for everything on the day of release, so it's really more about where you go after you release the game and how you're able to solve those problems in the game. Although a few other blog reviews have made note of these hitches in the gameplay as well. Harrison Abbott of BloodyDisgusting.com also mentions the bugs at the time of his review, but he sees the potential in the game once those are solved. So, have these bugs been fixed? Does this horror game hold up to the very positive Steam reviews a month after its release? Let's find out. Alright, now before we jump into this, we always want you to consider the content disclaimers before playing the game. This game is listed on Steam as containing disturbing imagery, drug references, moments of self-harm, and strong language. Additionally, some of the effects on the game screen do present some flashing lights, so if you have any troubles with photosensitivity, please keep that in mind before you purchase this game. The game begins with you playing as a woman named Rebecca, and you are finishing up your apprenticeship at a mortuary, and you're beginning your full-time employment at this very same place. Right away, the first thing that I noticed that's impressive is the voice acting and the animations that are given to the characters while speaking or performing any movements. That attention to detail is not something that you see in every single indie game. And no, those animations take a lot of time to perfect, and it's something that you would see in typically a game from a much larger company. Now the nice thing is that attention to detail also rolls into the actual job tasks of the mortuary technician. You are physically setting jaws, you are draining blood, and everything in between. I've seen multiple comments from people who claim to do this work in real life, and they've given credit to the game for imitating the process pretty properly. I would say that this is a plus for most horror fans, and only the most squeamish would have issues with the blood and gore side of things, as it really is not all that bad. Also, I'm happy to report that I did not experience any game-breaking bugs while playing my playthrough. I did mess around with the settings a little bit, and sometimes it took a little bit of time for changes to happen, such as captions to appear or my mouse sensitivity to react to the changes that I made, but that only took an additional minute or two to straighten out, and this hardly impacted my experience at all, so it is great to see that those bugs, for the most part from what I've seen, have been taken care of. So what is the time commitment for this game? For most people reporting who have played this game, they say it takes about 1.5 hours to complete the main storyline. Now for me, I tend to game a little bit slower, and I ended up taking a smidge over 2 hours. I think this game does a good job of helping you learn the controls through the beginning tutorial. Now it does require a little bit of brain power and a little bit of memory, as you will be repeating some of these same tasks throughout the game. With that said, I was never stuck for more than 5 to 10 minutes at a time while playing this game, and I think that's usually a pretty good sign for the player. I think any longer than that, maybe players might get discouraged and, drop the game for a little while. But by the third time I performed my job duties, I felt as though I had a pretty solid grasp on what I needed to do. Now, there is a small aspect of replayability in this game, which you always love to see in games that have a shorter playtime for the main storyline. I don't want to elaborate on this too much, as I don't want to give anything away, but I don't know if the average gamer would take advantage of this replayability, simply because I could see some parts of this becoming a little too repetitive, to the point where the replayability is really more for the perfectionists of us, or the achievement hunters, rather than that player who is looking for that cheap thrill. Now, the real reason that you're here is probably for some scares, right? This game certainly has that. There is an overall eerie feeling throughout this game. It's tough to describe, but it's a feeling of primarily only hearing your movements, so that when a scare does happen, it's a very new audio sensory for you to absorb in that moment. Even more, the scares that got me the best were the ones without audio cues. You would just be going about your daily business, and then with no warning, you would look up in the exact direction where the demon has planted itself. I also think the map is set up in a way that has you dreading walking to certain areas. For example, the entire game I was convinced that something was going to come of this picture on the wall while walking down this long hallway. Every time I make that trek, I thought to myself, surely this is going to be the time, prepare yourself. And that preparation in itself has you on edge just a little bit more than usual. One last note about the aspect of horror in this game. There is an element of mistrust. With the demon trying to overtake you, you can never be sure if you can trust the person, if you can trust a phone call, or even your own eyes. I think this quote from the game audio summed it up pretty nicely. You can't trust the phones. Anything can be manipulated. And I think that just adds an added level of curiosity as you go through the game, because you're never certain, is this what Rebecca's seeing, or is this the demon showing her this? And this brings us to the big question, should you buy this game? The answer for me is a simple one, yes. I truly think that Darkstone Digital has created a very solid horror game. And even though demons are a common focal point of scary games, the storyline does provide a bit of uniqueness. The ability to gain a little insight into the daily requirements of a mortuary technician adds a fun element, while scares are definitely lurking in the shadows. Now, of course, there is a caveat. The current price of the game is $25 USA, and I can see that being a bit difficult to justify for some players who are looking for a fright on a budget. It also might be a little steep for those players who are not going to take advantage of that replayability aspect. For those players, maybe they wait and grab it when the game is eventually on sale. Now, for horror fans such as myself and achievement hunters, I think it's worth the purchase at its current price point. I liken it to going to the movie theaters, right? You know you're going to be down probably $20, $25, even without snacks, but you're going to be getting that hour-and-a-half to 2-hour experience that you paid for. Now it's time for us to give our first ever game rating on the channel. Ratings will be out of 10, and anything above a 7 will be worth a look for the right customer. For the Mortuary Assistant, I think it is deserving of a solid 7.8 out of 10. There are many things to like about this game, with really just the price point and a little bit of repetitiveness holding the game back from being an 8. And I always love to bump up a score just slightly if I can see it's a dev who is clearly going to take care of the game as it goes on throughout its time. And we've already seen that Darkstone Digital has patched some bugs, so I think it is really deserving of this score. I want to know what you all think. Have you all played this game before? Let me know in the comments of any rating that you would give, and which game we should dive into next. Finally, please like and subscribe to the channel. That way you're going to be able to keep up with all the indie games on our radar, and we can continue making these videos. Alright, thanks everyone. This has been your game preview of the Mortuary Assistant.